All right, today we're going to look at Jesus healing all kinds of people, and he's driven by this one thing. I'll give you the Greek word, splanchnizomai. Stick around so we can talk about what it means. Hey, welcome to Bibletime, everybody. Craig here. Thanks for joining me. We're picking up in Matthew chapter 9, starting in verse 14 today. And this is a place where you get to encounter the greatest message ever written. A love story from God's heart right to you. And so this is a place where I'm just kind of trying to provide a platform where you can visually see it, hear it with your ears, see it with your eyes, hopefully receive it with your heart. And my goal is just to kind of maybe help those that struggle with reading the Bible and understanding, but I'm not really here to teach. It's just I believe that every single one of us can receive something from God's Word and grow in relationship with Him every time we read it. So that's the point of these videos. If you're new, I'm glad you're with me. Glad you're with us. Maybe leave a comment and let us know where you're coming from, how you found out about these, and consider hitting subscribe. And with that, we're going to jump right in. I encourage you to grab a Bible if you have one. If not, you're going to see it right there on your screen. And let's see what happens. Then the disciples of John came to him, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" If you don't know what fasting is, it's abstaining from eating for religious purposes. So really a real good heart of it, other than just doing it out of religiosity, a good heart is to abstain from food so that even in your weakness, you can recognize God's strength. And even when you're feeling that lacking in your flesh, you're turning your desire to God and reminding your flesh of the desperation that you have for God. And so, but they people in this time, I'm not saying we don't really know everybody's heart, but a lot of times it sort of came off as just this religious thing to do. And so anything that God asks us to do can be religious and empty, or it can be deeply meaningful. It's all about our heart. So anyway, they're like, "Why do we have to fast?" And they fast, but your disciples don't fast. And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, and the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put in old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst and the wine is spilled and the skins are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved." Yeah, okay. So they're asking about fasting, and he's talking about a groom, and he's talking about a patch on a garment, and then he's talking about wine in wineskins. So I don't know. Yeah. I guess he's saying that, hey, I'm here. Literally, I am with you. And so to fast in order to seek me maybe doesn't make sense in this particular moment, in this season. This is like a new season. It's like a new wineskin. So we're doing something a little different right now. You have time to actually be with me, ask me questions directly, listen to me. And so fasting for the sake of prayer isn't maybe what's needed right now. You just need to hang out with me and listen to me. I don't know exactly all that he meant by all those analogies, but that's kind of what I hear. While he was saying these things to them, behold, a ruler came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." This is faith. So this dude's a ruler, and his daughter has died. But his faith says this, "But come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus rose and followed him with his disciples. And behold, pay attention, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. So this woman had been bleeding for 12 years. Okay? Now, what we know of the culture is that if you were bleeding like that, you were supposed to stay away from people, away from the city, and you weren't really supposed to touch somebody. But she knew what she needed to do. She knew who she needed to get to. She knew the guy who had been healing people, and he had healing power in him, and she knew that she needed to get to him. Also, the fringe of the garment, I don't know exactly the references, and we can study that out, but again, this isn't time for study, so I just want to point this out. But there were some prophecies about healing power being in the tassels of the garments of the Messiah. So many people believe that this passage is actually describing not just an account of how this woman was miraculously healed, not just a woman that believed that there was a man that could heal, but actually a description of a woman that believed that Jesus was the Messiah. So that's pretty cool. So Jesus is on the way to go potentially raise a dead girl, raise a girl to life from the dead. And in the meantime, he's walking through this crowd of people, and this woman touches the fringes of his garment. For she said to herself, "If I only touch his garment, I will be made well." This is faith. Both of these people are operating in extreme faith. Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." Another gospel has this whole account of Jesus is like, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are like, "Dude, everybody's touching you." And he's like, no, power departed from me and entered somebody else. And he didn't even know who it was at the moment. And that's not in this section, but in the other gospel of this account, that's what it says. And I just love that thought that when you approach God with faith, with audacious faith, to reach out and grab him, to recognize who he is and what he can do, power actually can leave him and enter into us to accomplish what we need. But I love this response to her. He says, "Take heart, do not be discouraged, but come alive in your heart. Daughter," I love this description of relationship, "your faith has made you well." Isn't it so interesting how many times in the Gospels Jesus attributes the healing to somebody's faith? So I've struggled with that personally over the years, because I've just struggled with sending the message to people, well, if you weren't healed, there's something wrong with your faith. And I don't think that that's God's heart, but I mean, the more that I read the Bible, it's just so many times he says your faith has made you well. So I think while maybe we don't say to people, well, beat them down because of their lack of faith, but what we can do is on the other side say, come on, let's build your faith. Let's build your faith. Let's build your faith. Because we do know that faith, God responds to faith. And why he doesn't and why it doesn't happen, I don't know. I can't speak to that in my humanity. There's the mystery of God. But what we do know is that God does respond to faith. And so we want to build that up in people. So he says, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. And when Jesus came to the ruler's house, he saw the flute players in the crowd making commotion. They would hire people to wail and moan when somebody died. He said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And then they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went through all that district. Absolutely unreal. Healing, healing, healing. And as Jesus passed from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying aloud, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." Yet again, another indication that these people knew his identity, who he was. They're crying for mercy. And, of course, they are blind. So they're following, not even really seeing, but they know that Jesus is there, and they're crying out to him. When he entered the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I'm able to do this?" They said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes, saying, "According to your faith, be it done to you." Wow. According to your faith, be it done to you. Again, it's their faith that according to Jesus, it's their faith that's providing the avenue for their healing. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, "See that no one knows about it." But they went away and spread his fame through the district. I love that, his fame. And so a lot of people kind of wonder, like, why would Jesus say, don't let anybody, he does this a lot of times. Don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody. And I think most theologians believe it's kind of like he knew that at a certain time he was going to go to the cross. He wanted to accomplish his ministry before they arrested him and put him to death. And so he was trying to keep certain things quiet so that there didn't become too much of a stir about him before the proper time. And so, but, you know, when God shows up and changes a life, people can't help but talk about it. And I think that when we're talking about our lives, applying this practically to our lives, that's something that we should consider. Like, hey, how much do we really believe God has done in our life, and are we bragging about him? Are we so excited about what God has done that we're spreading his fame? I mean, that's the type of person I want to be, is somebody that spreads the fame of Jesus, not just my own. As they were going away, behold, a demon-oppressed man who was mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the mute man spoke. So it appears that the demon was what was causing the muteness. As the crowds marveled, saying, "Never was anything seen like this in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "He casts out demons by the prince of demons." An argument that Jesus, is clearly like, you guys are dumb. Like, seriously? You think I'm casting out demons, but I'm from the devil? Like, why would I do that? A kingdom divided against itself can't stand. It's just showing so many healings, so many ways that Jesus operates and wants to operate in response to faith. And Jesus went throughout the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. The word gospel means good news. So he went in the synagogues and through the cities and villages, and he was teaching the good news of the kingdom, healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send laborers into the harvest." Let's talk about a few things and close this up for today. This word right here, compassion, I want to teach you a Greek word because it's one of my favorite. Splanchnizomai. Splanchnizomai is the word here, to have compassion. And I always remember this word from college because the root for this, splanchna, is actually the word for guts. Like, it's bowels. Bowels is literally the word there. And what it's saying, anytime it talks about Jesus having compassion, it says that the idea of this word is like that thing that's so deep in you that's gut-wrenching. That's really a good word for it, gut-wrenching. That there's something that you're so passionate about, you love so much that it's literally gut-wrenching you to where you have to be involved and do something. There's something about sympathy and feeling sorry for somebody, but there's something about that situation where you're like, oh, my guts are turning, I have to get involved and do something. That's who Jesus is. When he sees people like sheep without a shepherd, he's like, I have to get involved. I have to help these people. And then he says this famous thing: the harvest is plentiful and the workers are few. And then he kind of gets them. Like, I don't know if you ever caught this, but he says, therefore pray. Pray earnestly that the Lord of the harvest would send harvesters or laborers into the harvest. And he's kind of catching them. It's not really fooling them. It's not really a trick, but it's You know, it's the way that Jesus, again, how he speaks rhetorically. Like, he's using these statements to draw people into something that they can't deny. If you were going to pray earnestly, if you knew that the harvest was ready for the picking, and that your call from God was to pray that people would that God would send people in to pick, you can't really pray passionately for that unless you're willing to actually be involved and go help pick, right? And so that's what he's doing, is he's drawing them in. He's saying, pray for this. And then as you begin praying, you realize, man, I have to be involved in this. How can I not be involved in this? The harvest is ready. The gospel is being preached and people are ready to receive it. And we just need laborers to go and do the work. So Jesus says, pray for them. And then as you pray, you're like, man, I need to be a laborer too. It's time for me to get involved in the game. And so lots going on here in this chapter, lots of healing, many different types of healings, casting out demons. And then this is a great closing. And so I just want to ask you, do you have Splunk needs a my? Do you have something in your guts that's stirring you to get involved and be involved in what God is doing? He's inviting you to, with passion, be involved in building his kingdom and sharing his good news. Are you willing to accept that? I want to encourage you to spend some time in prayer considering that and considering what it is that he's called you to and how you can make a difference in this world. So God bless you. We're in this thing together. It's worth it. Any sacrifice that God asks you to make is worth it for the sake of his kingdom. You will end up fulfilled for being involved in this whole thing. So love you guys. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow.